To me, a cigarette is food. Tobacco is my favorite vegetable.
Have you ever manipulated parts of yourself to appear like something better than what you believe you are? Well, you're not alone. It's part of the social game we all play to be liked, respected, wanted, and loved. And we all need these things to survive with a certain quality of life. So we tweak our persona to more or less control how we're perceived by others, or how we appear. An appearance is exactly this: the way something or someone comes across during an encounter. Now, the major flaw with appearances is of course that they lack a kind of truth, as long as the person or thing being presented lacks integrity. Integrity is something that describes the coherence between how you are, how you think, and how you act. And so a person acting with the utmost highest of integrity would never bother to create appearances, but rather just be. These individuals are of course more rare, much because of how integrity really isn't encouraged by the general culture and society. So when integral people appear, they might often stand out because we immediately sense a kind of truth or authenticity about them, or about what they do. Not just that, but more integral people are usually more defined because of how they're acting out as themselves, and not just as a limited or altered version of themselves, but remaining whole without letting the threat of their own quality of survival reduce them. A person can really only trust themselves like this if he or she adhere to a special code of moral or artistic values. Integrity is not only the continuity of one's own personal governance, but also the quality of its infrastructure. An example of moral integrity would be that if you had the realization that you are not of any greater inherent value than anyone else, you would naturally not behave as you were. You could say that Mahatma Gandhi's choice of going on a hunger strike in protest of the British government's choice to separate India's electoral system by caste were an historically powerful act of extreme moral integrity. But how does integrity relate to art? Well, for art to ever be created, a deep personal process needs to occur. A process where one or a few individuals indulge with conflicts that are deeply rooted within their individual selves, collective structures, abstract constructs, or other areas that allow for some sort of creative discovery. This process, because of its nature, holds a certain sacredness. It's a place where creativity gets to live for the sake of creativity, and is able to express itself through different mediums constructed to serve sensational and intuitive needs for discovery and progress. For these works of art to have an effect and affect people, they need to find an audience which they can resonate with. Now there's a market for art, or several markets, and the way these markets operate is determined by numbers. Now there's marketing strategies to manipulate those numbers as much as possible to appear successful, and suddenly success is determined by appearance, by how it comes across through an encounter, not by what it actually is. And suddenly artists create for the sake of appearance to attract numbers rather than the sake for creating. So long as numbers are king, societies cannot serve what we would call artistic integrity, and it's instead up to the individual to reserve artistic integrity's place and influence in the world by creating and supporting integral art. But what exactly is integral art? As I said earlier, art stems from creativity which attempts to serve our needs for progress. And as Frank Zappa famously said, without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. Now, Frank Zappa is probably one of the great integral artists of late, and an artist who did a lot for both other artists as well as art itself. Zappa was one of those creative individuals who, because he was so bombarded with creative ideas, he felt the need to work as much as he could. And because he wasn't very interested in trying to figure out where in the music world he could fit in, he instead created his own place and let the audience find him. Because of the experimental nature of Zappa's music and its broad variety, it naturally wasn't very marketable in the classical sense, but in the case of Zappa's approach to music, this didn't bother him much. The music was not created to appear as successful or as anything specific, but rather out of creative hunger.
My desires are simple. All I want to do is get a good performance and a good recording of everything that I ever wrote, so I can hear it. And if anybody else wants to hear it, then that's great too. Sounds easy, but it's really hard to do.
By adhering to this specific artistic code, he in many ways had to sacrifice his public appearance. A wise choice if you consider how any public individual's appearance is completely out of the individual's control. Zappa rather focused on the thing he had control over, which was his music, and with an insatiable hunger to create, he did just that.
As an entertainer, I'm responsible for delivering the best of what I can do to the audience that has bought a ticket to see it or buys a record to hear it.
In total, Zappa gave out 113 studio albums, 40 tribute albums, and 13 compilation albums. He performed his music all over the world, both in person, through the radio and the television. Zappa had great success by many means and by going in his very own direction.
Do you expect to actually make any money out of the concert and the recordings that you've come here to make
No.
with the LSO?
No.
Why then do you do it?
Well, I think that any artistic decision that is based on whether or not you're going to make money is not really an artistic decision. It's a business decision. And there are a lot of things that I can do to earn a living, and a lot of things that I've already done to earn a living, which have produced the amount of capital needed to do this project.
His approach to the music industry was not just motivated by his artistic code, but also by his strong stance against how it operated. Zappa was famously very much against the censorship of music, which left a lot of the great music with strong language in the basement of the music industry, putting artists in a position where they either had to compromise their language or sell fewer records.
I mean, if it looks like censorship and it smells like censorship, it is censorship no matter whose wife is talking about it. It's censorship.
I got concerns here about what's going to happen to the right to have free speech and the right to assemble and the right to have somebody use your own words against you in a legal situation. And nobody is sticking their neck out to say that it's all a bunch of crap.
Do you think the Founding Fathers really had the First Amendment, that they gave us the First Amendment to defend songs that glorify Satanism and incest and suicide? Do you really believe
Absolutely.
that? You really believe
Yeah,
that?
I believe it.
Well, you're an idiot then.
Yeah?
You're an idiot.
Well, I'll tell you what, kiss my How do you
Well,
like
take
that,
your teeth
buddy?
out.
This is working here. Hello, which one's working? None. This is censorship.
I have no objection to having all of the lyrics placed on the album routinely all the time.
I think your suggestion is an intriguing one and might really be a solution.
I think your suggestion is a good one, that they print those words. That would go a long way to satisfying everyone's objection. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hawkins.
In this dispute, Zappa was one of the few artists who stood up and involved himself to try and make a difference for the sake of the artist. Because as an artist, Zappa wanted creative freedom both for himself and his peers. And in striving for this, he was one of the first artists to create an independent label, taking a big risk for the freedoms he deemed the most important. Zappa was of course only able to do this because he actually believed that by adhering to his artistic code of creating what he himself found to be enjoyable, others would find value in his music as well and buy it. And people did, much because of Zappa's clever and humorous abilities as a composer and songwriter, but also because of the intrigue his artistic integrity created. When someone with a known creative talent puts the time and effort into creating something for the sake of their own consumption first, people get curious, and curiosity quickly unfolds into interest, which unfolds into admiration, which unfolds into inspiration, which unfolds into love. Appearance might attract attention, and it's often what we first come for, but appearance is rarely something that makes us stay. And as an artist, it's important to prioritize the fundamentals of why you do what you do. for what you do to give a reason for anyone to stay. Because if you're an artist who is not able to get anyone to stay, you're actively fighting for attention through appearance, sacrificing your art itself, which is the only quality that could make anyone stay. Zappa was never the most famous musician within a specific branch because he didn't belong to any. He was a unique talent, one who led by example and one who were admired by other artists for being able to constantly reinvent himself, never staying in one place for long enough to be labeled as something other than Frank Zappa, both a unique man and a unique brand and symbol, who proved by the adherence to his own sacred artistic code an alternative to commercial success as an artist.
I think Frank could have written hit records all day, and he purposely sabotaged a lot of his records. It was interesting because everybody was going for the hit record and he never did.
Instead of influencing the music industry through being a giant commercial success, Zappa has been a source of inspiration and love for the creative and artistic craft in more ways than what can be recorded. His creative force has left deep roots within the world of music and creative endeavor, where his work has left a remarkable change. It's difficult to record the impact of significance artistic integrity can have in a material sense, considering the many ways creativity affects the world, but it's safe to say that the impact most certainly is of significance, both by artistic and cultural evidence that will never faint and forever remain in the tracks of our past.
We were loud, we were coarse, and we were strange. And if anybody in the audience ever gave us any trouble, we'd tell them to fuck off.
Thank you for watching the video. I hope you found this valuable in some way. If you did and you're interested in a deeper look into Frank Zappa's career and life, I put a link to the 2020 documentary Zappa in the description below. It's a really great documentary worth seeing and one that inspired this video. He's not a perfect person by any means, but a fascinating one. Also, if you want to support this channel, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're looking for copyright-free music for your content, whatever it might be, check out my link to Epidemic Sound in the description below. It's a massive library with all kinds of quality produced music. You can find something there for whatever project you're working on, and if you use my link, you as well as me will get a 30-day free subscription, so a little something for you and a little something that helps out this channel. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.
Here's the question, you'll know exactly what it is, and that is, how does Frank Zappa want to be remembered?
It's not important.
Not important at all. Want to be remembered for the music?
It's not important to even be remembered.